2 Kings chapter 17. And as you noticed, the message this morning will be one octave lower than normal. And with God's grace, we'll make it all the way through. 2 Kings chapter 17. We continue our study in looking at what has happened in Israel and Judah. And if anybody needs a Bible, slip up your hand because we want to get one into that hand. I usually say that earlier, but there's still time. And if you would like to take that home with you with our blessing, please do. It is our gift to you. 2 Kings, Old Testament, chapter 17. We've been looking at the history of Israel. And we know after King Solomon died, the kingdom of Israel was actually divided into two kingdoms, a northern kingdom and a southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was referred to as Israel and comprised 10 of the 12 tribes and most of the people, most of the area. To the south was Judah, much smaller, only 2 tribes. Basically, the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. And so they split up. And what happened was in the northern kingdom, they invented a new religion. The northern kingdom, he was worried, the first king was worried that maybe the people are going to want to go down to that great temple that Solomon built. It was so cool, and they'd be going down there 2 or 3 times a year. And he was worried that that was going to cause his power to wane. And so he said, here's what I'll do. I'll create 2 idols. One giant golden calf that he set in Bethel, which was pretty much one of the southernmost points in the northern kingdom, and one up at Dan, pretty much the northern point of the kingdom. And he said, hey, Israel, this is the God who brought you out of Egypt. And they invented a religion and came up with priestly garments and priests and assigned them and rituals and all kinds of stuff and didn't follow what God had ordained, but instead made it up as they went along, whatever seemed convenient. And then as we've studied over the history of the northern kingdom, all of the kings, there were 4 separate dynasties, and all of the kings followed in this same sin. And then some got worse and brought in the worship of other gods. Didn't even say, okay, well, we're changing what the true God looks like and who he is and how we're going to worship him. We're going to do it according to the way we want to. But then they also began to bring in the gods of the peoples around them, Baal and the Ashtaroth, and began to worship them. God sent his messengers to them again and again, and they rebelled and didn't listen. And it's interesting as you follow through the Old Testament, you find that God says, and I sent calamity upon you so that you would pay attention. Did you know, and if you're a Christian, you should know, that all of the punishment for your sin, past, present, future, is poured out on Jesus Christ at the cross. There's no punishment left for your sin if your life is hidden in Jesus Christ. If you are a follower of him, you are forgiven. God doesn't pour out more punishment because, you've really been stepping out of line. I'm going to give you something because you deserve this. This is my punishment for you because you need to be purged and you need to be, your salvation isn't quite complete yet. But calamity does come upon us sometimes, and sometimes we bring it upon ourselves in the choices that we make. Isn't that true? Well, it's true for me. Nobody said yes, so I can tell you for me it's true. And that calamity that comes is not your punishment for your sins. Jesus took that on the cross. But if you're anything like me, sometimes God needs to take not a 2x4, not a 4x4, a 4x6, and smack. Hey, pay attention. Hey. And that's what he said he was doing to Israel. He said, I poured calamity upon you so that you would turn to me. The book of Romans in the 1st chapter talks about the fact that this spiral down of when people rejected God and so forth, then he gave them over to certain unrighteous practices and certain things. And the whole purpose of that was so that they would see the emptiness in what they were pursuing and thus turn to God. God puts us in a desert sometimes. And he puts us there not because he doesn't love us, but because he does. And the same reason that if you were a parent and your 2-year-old wanted to play with razor blades, you wouldn't let them. No matter how much they cried, no matter how much they wanted it, no matter how many times they went into the medicine cabinet and tried to find them and get them out, you would hide them, you would keep them away from them. They're living in a desert of razor blades. Because you love them so much to put them in that desert. That's our God. And that's how much he had poured out to the nation of Israel. And the northern kingdom again and again and again and again and again and even more turned back. And so we come to this sad, sad chapter in 2 Kings. And we'll pick it up. Well, first I need to get to 2 Kings. I'm in 1 Kings. We pick it up in verse 5. Now the king of Assyria went throughout all the land and went up to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years. And in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away to Assyria and placed them in Halah by the harbor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. We'll stop right there for a second. When the Assyrians completely conquered another nation, what they did was they deported the majority of the people from that nation into other nations. They deported them. That was their way of exercising control. This is where the term the lost 10 tribes of Israel comes from, right here. Because those 10 tribes of the northern kingdom were scattered all over the world. They weren't lost. God scattered them because of their continuing sin. And that's what the writer, who most scholars believe was Jeremiah of 2 Kings, that's what the writer tells us over the next 10 or 12 verses. And I'll give you a summary of it. He says, they walked in the statutes of the nations that the Lord had cast out. The Lord had cleared the way for them and cleansed the land before them. And they said, no, we want that back. We want that back. They sinned secretly and openly. Both. God sent his prophets to warn them, and their reaction was to abandon the commandments of God and create their own religion. And so we come down to verse 18 of chapter 17. And it says, therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them from his sight. I don't want to see you anymore. Did you ever hear anybody say that to you? Man, I don't want to see you anymore. I don't want to see you here anymore. That's what God said to his very own people. I don't want to see you anymore. He removed them from his sight, and there was none left but the tribe of Judah alone. Now Judah was not much better, and we find that in the next verse. And Judah didn't keep the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel, which they made. In other words, they started taking on the same stuff that Israel had done. He tore Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. This is right after Solomon. And then Jeroboam drove Israel from following the Lord and made them commit a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam, which he did. They did not depart from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants, the prophets. So Israel was carried away from their own land to Assyria, as it is to this day. Now that's the writer saying that, as it is to this day. If indeed Jeremiah was the writer of the book of Kings, 1st and 2nd both, then 150 years later, he's saying, and so they're gone as it is to this day.